On 9/11, we have tried to understand why. And we are here today to honor the heroes of that day. The heroes of the wars that followed. Those who gave the last full measure of devotion with incredible acts of courage and heroism and immeasurable sacrifice. We all know that 9/11 has changed America forever. All of us. It was an incredible day of pain and anguish and frustration and resolve. Thousands of Americans are on duty in very dangerous places now because of 9/11, and our thoughts are also with them. Here now to offer our invocation is Hillsborough County Fire Rescue Lieutenant Timothy Partridge.
As we're here to remember that day 10 years ago, I felt that we needed to also look at what Scripture may tell us as we try to work through this. In Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths." And as we look at the Psalms, Psalm 121, 1 and 2, it says, "I will lift up my eyes to the hills, from whence my help comes from. My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth." Let us pray. Father, we just come to you right now, Lord, thanking you for our freedom that we can gather, Lord. Father, we're saddened for the reason that we're having to gather, Lord. Father, but we thank you that we know that you've been with us step by step by step. Father, I just ask as we go through today that you comfort each person that may be suffering in different ways. Father, just let them feel you wrapping around them. Father, I just ask that you be with each speaker. Father, just to give them clarity of speech. We ask this all in your most precious name. Amen.
The colors will be presented now by the Honor Guard of the United States Central Command, and they will be escorted by Honor Guards from our own first responder units from throughout Hillsborough County. Please stand, ladies and gentlemen, and post the colors. Ladies and gentlemen, the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. After the smoke had cleared on 9/11, at Ground Zero, we were trying to come to grips with what had happened. We rallied around the very symbol of America that appeared on helmets and earth-moving equipment, twisted steel in the sides of buildings. Old Glory was still flying. Here now is the national anthem of the United States, and it will be performed by Hillsborough County Commissioner Leslie Miller.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
You may retire the colors. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Again, thank you for coming on this overcast afternoon in September as we honor those who risked their lives, who gave their lives, and suffered injuries as a result of the tragic events of 9/11. In a moment, in a matter of about 4 or 5 minutes, not to alarm you, but we will get a salute from 1,000 feet. A KC-135 from MacDill Air Force Base will fly over. Welcome to our special guests, Governor Rick Scott, the Chairman of the Hillsborough County Commission, Al Higginbotham, Sheriff David Gee, Police Chief Jane Castor, Hillsborough County Commissioners, members of City Council, and other state and local officials. It is my pleasure now to introduce a man who is in the thick of a political battle in Tallahassee, trying to overhaul government and get our economy on track. He has faced many challenges that few of his predecessors have in Tallahassee. He served in the United States Navy. His father served in the 82nd Airborne Division in World War II, and he is here with his wife, Ann, and they are always welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, the 45th Chief Executive Officer of the state of Florida, Governor Rick Scott.
It'll be nice when the jet comes by. It'll probably scare the living daylights out of us. During my campaign, during the inauguration, we waited. We were going too fast. We had to wait another 20 minutes because you can't be sworn in until 12:01, and the planes were going to come over right at 12:01. So they kept playing more music and more music and more music. So we're not doing that today. Well, this is a great occasion. I wish it didn't have to happen. I was in New York City 10 years ago on September 11th. I knew a lot of families that lost loved ones that day. It's a horrible day in our history. Your heart goes out to the nearly 3,000 people that lost their lives that day, those that are in the tower, those that came to the tower to rescue others. And on top of that, our heart goes out to all those that have lost loved ones in this war on terror. And still today we lose loved ones because we have individuals in Afghanistan, Iraq, and around the world that are defending our freedom. And then we also know that we have to defend our freedom here right in our country. So I just want to say my wife and I both, our solemn prayers that we say for those that have been lost over the last 10 years, and our thankfulness for those that are willing to defend our freedom overseas and in this country, people that every day show up, whether policemen or law enforcement, to defend our livelihood, our ability to go out and do our jobs, and also to organize like this and sit together and have discussions. So it's a real honor to be here, and thank goodness that so many people are here recognizing this solemn day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Governor. You know, broadcasting the evening news as I do every night, you sitting at home watching on television, reading in the newspaper, we have all been part of this incredible event that has hurt our hearts beyond belief in many ways. And right here in Tampa at MacDill Air Force Base, Iran, Afghanistan, Yemen, Somalia may be half a world away, but it's as close as MacDill. The Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, all those extraordinary people who work at CENTCOM and U.S. Special Operations Command and all the component commands of MacDill. We're reminded every day, maybe when you look up in the sky, you hear the engine roar of a mighty jet. It has the flag of the United States on it. Every one of us should pause at that moment and remember where we are and who we are and why we are here. For without that military, without the best fighting force in the world, the United States Armed Forces, we wouldn't be having this moment here. And all these extraordinary men and women in uniform standing around you who represent all the first responder units, the police, the fire, the rescue, they all played an incredible part on 9/11. There it is, a KC-135 from the 6th Air Mobility Wing. That's a salute to you. Representing more than 35 veterans now, organizations within Hillsborough County, scores of veterans, please welcome the President of the Hillsborough County Veterans Council, Mr. Walt Rasik.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and veterans. The Veterans Council of Hillsborough County is honored to be a part of this ceremony to remember the victims, the rescuers, the active duty military, the fallen heroes, and the veterans who have served since 9/11. The Veterans Council represents more than 35 veteran organizations and their auxiliaries. Our members served in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and the Middle East. We are proud of everyone that is serving or has served our great nation. On this day in particular, we salute those who are carrying out the missions on the wars on terror. Though 10 years have passed since that day in September, the feelings of shock, sadness, and anger are still very real. We can remember where we were and what we were doing when the news broke about the terrorist attacks. But the events of that fateful morning also served to ignite the patriotic passion in all of us. We cannot and we will not forget what happened. The Veterans Council, like other veterans groups across our great nation, are filled with old guys, young guys, and ladies who have answered the call of duty. I know you join with me in praying for all our troops deployed around the world. Next time you come across a veteran, say hello and thank you. And to you here today who came to this ceremony to remember and to honor, I say thank you on behalf of all veterans. May God continue to bless the United States of America.
One of the top commanders of CENTCOM is with us. Brigadier General Ralph Gruber serves as Deputy Director of Operations, United States Central Command at MacDill. General Gruber began his military career in 1977, enlisting in the Florida Army National Guard, 3rd Battalion, 20th Special Forces Group Airborne. And after 6 years he enlisted as an enlisted service, he attended Officer Candidate School and was commissioned as Second Lieutenant. General Gruber has previously deployed in staff and command positions in support of state emergencies, as well as Operations Joint Guard, Enduring Freedom, and Iraqi Freedom. General Gruber is currently on leave from his civilian career as a law enforcement officer with the Orange County Sheriff's Office in Orlando, and we are pleased to have him with us. Brigadier General Ralph Gruber.
Thank you. Governor Scott, Chairman Higginbotham, Mayor Buckhorn, Mayor Fronte, Sheriff G, Admiral McCraven, special guests, military members, past and present, first responders, citizens, and visitors. On behalf of General Mattis, Commander of the United States Central Command, and the nearly 200,000 soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen currently deployed to the CENTCOM area responsibility, I thank you for the opportunity to participate in this special memorial event. As a fellow citizen soldier in the Florida Army National Guard and as a first responder currently on leave, I especially am honored to be here with you. We are fortunate to live in a community that supports the military the way Tampa and all of Hillsborough County has embraced our men and women in uniform. Your support to the returning veterans in our deployed forces and their families defines the values of our nation. From the flags along Bay Shore to the support for our wounded warriors in the VA hospital, we appreciate the tremendous support you continue to provide all of us in uniform and our families. The senseless attacks 10 years ago were not only an attack on the United States, they were an attack on freedom-loving people everywhere. And they remind us of our responsibilities and our values. We stand together as a nation to protect the innocent. The unprovoked attacks on our fellow citizens and people from 90 other nations resulted in the death of nearly 3,000 men, women, and children that were guilty of nothing more than pursuing life in a freedom-loving nation. These attacks were planned and executed by Al-Qaeda, which at that time had its headquarters in Afghanistan, controlled by the Taliban, who, when given the opportunity to separate from Al-Qaeda, chose to maintain their support of this fanatical group of murderers. In October 2001, the United States and our allies launched operations to defeat the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. That international mission continues today with now over 49 countries joined together, headquartered here in Tampa, United States Central Command. It's the largest wartime coalition in recent history. We face an enemy that represents no religion. These are terrorists that kill innocent men, women, and children. And today we solemnly and quietly reaffirm our resolve to stand together against these terrorists. We honor those innocent victims, first responders, and military members that have and continue to sacrifice so much. We are proud of our young men and women who continue to volunteer to serve selflessly at a time of war. And we appreciate the federal, state, and local officials that continue to guard the homeland against all threats. The selfless service of many is an inspiration and reminder of the spirit and principles that have created our nation. The losses of our fellow citizens, both the innocents on 9/11 and our stalwart brothers and sisters in uniform, have only made us more determined to continue to carry out our mission. Let me close with some words from General Mattis, the commander of Central Command. With unwavering support of our coalition partners, we will continue taking the fight to our enemy until they are willing to let all our populations live, work, and pray in peace. I thank you and the Tampa community for your continued support. God bless all of you, our nation, and all that stand for freedom.
Supporting the U.S. Air Force's worldwide reach, global power mission, and to provide support to Headquarters, United States Central Command, Headquarters, U.S. Special Operations Command, and 51 other mission partners. It's our pleasure now to welcome the commander of the 6th Air Mobility Wing, Colonel Lenny Richoux. It was his KC-135 that flew overhead.
Colonel, pleasure. Very much, sir. Wow, what a great day. Thank you all for putting this ceremony together. It's quite special. Thanks to the citizens of Tampa for this wonderful remembrance. You're such phenomenal supporters of our military community. You make it possible for us to do what we do. As MacDill's installation commander, I'm proud to support 15,000 soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who are defending freedom right now as we speak. As the 6th Air Mobility Wing commander, I'm proud to launch and recover the KC-135s, just like the one you saw flying overhead, aircraft that carry 200,000 pounds of fuel to extend the reach of fighters, bombers, reconnaissance aircraft, and other aircraft from all of our nation's military branches. We also run a phenomenal clinic that helps our wounded warriors. We have a phenomenal platform on MacDill that gives respite to our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines as they return from combat. However, it is you, the people of Tampa, who make our work possible. Your unquestioning support of our armed forces, our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, give us the strength to get the job done. Tampa, you are amazing, and your support for the military is the best I have ever seen. On 9/11, our nation saw the face of evil. Yet on that awful day, we also witnessed something distinctly American, ordinary citizens rising to the occasion and responding with extraordinary acts of courage. We saw courage in office workers who were trapped on the high floors of burning skyscrapers and called home so that their last words to their families would be of comfort and of love. We saw courage in passengers aboard Flight 93 who recited the 23rd Psalm and then charged the cockpit. And we saw courage in the Pentagon staff who made it out of the flames and smoke and ran back in to answer the calls for help. On this day, we remember the innocent who've lost their lives, and we pay tribute to those who gave their lives so that others might live, our first responders. The September the 11th attack has altered our view of the world and sparked a global effort to combat terrorism. Our constant vigilance and dedication to bring to justice those individuals and organizations involved in terrorist activities has led to terrorist leaders being captured or killed, but the war is not over. But you can rest assured that your military will not rest until the job is done. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Colonel, thank you. Our next presenter has commanded at every level within the Special Operations community, with assignments as Commander, Joint Special Operations Command, Commander, Special Operations Command, Europe, Commodore of Naval Special Warfare Group 1, and Commander of SEAL Team 3. A native of San Antonio, Texas, he was nominated by President Obama and confirmed by the United States Senate for appointment to the rank of Admiral and to be the 9th Commander of the United States Special Operations Command, headquartered at MacDill Air Force Base. And he assumed command on August 8th, 2011. It's our distinct honor and great pleasure to introduce and welcome a real American hero here, a leader of the nation's finest fighting force, the commander of the U.S. Special Operations Command, Admiral Bill McRaven.
Glad to have you, sir. Sure. Well, thank you very much. Good morning, Governor Scott, Sheriff G., Mr. Higginbotham, Mayor Buckhorn, other Hillsborough County distinguished guests, and the great citizens of Tampa and Florida. Thank you
for inviting me to speak today at this 9/11 Remembrance service. Over the past several weeks, I have had the privilege of attending a number of memorial services to honor those 38 brave men killed in a tragic helicopter shoot-down in Afghanistan on August 6th. These memorial services were both solemn and inspiring. They were solemn because we lost so many loved ones, but they were inspiring because of the strength of the families and the lessons those families teach us about life after 9/11. While August 6th was not 9/11, the tragedies are nevertheless inextricably linked by the events of that September day, and the courage displayed by the families left behind is indicative of the strength and the resolve and the compassion of this great nation since September 11th. I learned a lot in talking with the families. One grieving mother told me that she would always remember what she lost, but she was so thankful for what she still had. On 9/11, we lost loved ones, innocent men and women going about their daily lives, trying to earn a living for themselves and their families. First responders, firemen and policemen, soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and in 10 years since the cancer of terrorism spread, there have been thousands of Americans and Allied soldiers who have perished fighting this scourge. And let us not forget the Iraqis and Afghans who fought and died alongside our men, just hoping for a better life. We lost our innocence and our sense of security. But as that mother reminded me, what we have remains as important as what we lost. We have our freedom. That sometimes sounds trite until you spend time with people that don't have it. We have our dreams, but more importantly, in America, we have the ability to make our dreams a reality. We live in a great country that welcomes diversity, that thrives on individualism, that cherishes new ideas and new cultures. Yes, we should remember what we lost, but we should never forget what we have. We should also remember that there are evil men in the world who want to do us harm, who want to shoot down helicopters and fly planes into towering structures. But we should never forget that there is great good in the world as well, and that good will always prevail. I have seen the acts of barbarians as they tried to destroy what they cannot understand and what threatens their twisted sense of righteousness. But I have seen far greater acts of kindness from average Americans who risk everything to help people in need. 9/11 may have given us our greatest tragedy, but it also gave us our next greatest generation. The men that boarded that helicopter on the evening of 6 August came from every walk of life, every corner of the nation. They represented all that is good about this country. They were all children of 9/11 who raised their hands and volunteered to serve. And with that service came a sense of duty, patriotism, and national values that define who we are and what we bring to this world. This 9/11 generation, those that fight the fires, enforce the law, teach our children, protect our borders, sail the seas, fly the airways, drive the highways, and do 1,000 other things that make this country great. That generation, forged in the aftermath of 9/11, will shape the future of America for centuries to come. The lessons learned from 9/11 and from August 6th and from the 10 years in between is that as a people and as a nation, we are stronger than ever before. Our greatness was never measured by our towering skyscrapers, our military might, or our economic power. Our greatness is measured in the strength of our people, the firmness of our convictions, and the belief that no one can destroy the American dream, no matter how many times they try. As we take time to remember and honor those that perished on that fateful day, almost 10 years ago, let us also take time to remember what we have and to recommit ourselves to the values which made this country great. May God bless America.
Admiral, thank you for being here. 5 wreaths have been prepared to honor the heroes of 9/11. The fire rescue personnel, law enforcement, the 9/11 victims and survivors, members of the United States Armed Forces, and those who gave the last full measure of devotion. The wreaths will be placed on this giant steel beam here in front of us. It was pulled out of the wreckage of what was the World Trade Center. The first wreath will be presented by Mark Bogish. He is a captain with Tampa Fire Rescue. On September 11, 2001, Captain Bogish left Tampa with his specially trained search dog, Marley. They were on their way to Ground Zero to help find survivors who may be trapped in the mountain of debris that was once the World Trade Center. Mark and his canine partner, a black Labrador retriever, faced a grim job. They were assigned the night shift and searched the rubble 12 hours a day for 7 days. He said the scene was unbelievable, like something out of a movie, a disaster scene. Unimaginable piles of debris and steel and pieces of things that were the World Trade Center. Mark said that everything was covered by white powder and dust, concrete dust, as if it were a blanket of new fallen snow. Mark says he will never forget the trips from the staging area to Ground Zero. He would pass families of missing victims huddled on street corners waiting for word. They were holding signs and posters and pictures of loved ones, all hoping that the rescue dogs like Marley would find their father, their daughter, or son. One day, the search team stopped to greet the families there on the street in New York. Everybody hugged. Everybody cried. The dogs wagged their tails, and everybody kept hoping and hugging. They didn't find any survivors, but they were able to bring some closure to many families who did not know the fate of their loved ones. And Mark knew that fellow fire rescue personnel had gone into that wreckage and buildings, and many had not returned. How many of them were lost there was not known for several days. In the end, 343 fire rescue personnel had died at Ground Zero. Mark, like all the others, will never forget all those firefighters and rescue personnel who got the call to help and did not hesitate. He will always remember that he could have been in their shoes on that fateful day, and he would have run up those stairs just as they did. And he said one thing kept flashing in his mind. It is not about you. It's about someone else. Mark will now place a wreath on the beam honoring those 343 fire rescue personnel who died that day. Jorge Maldonado is a retired court officer, New York Supreme Court. He was on patrol around a courthouse in the Bronx when he got the radio call that an airliner had crashed into the North Tower. He and his partner evacuated the courthouse, then went up to the roof, where they had a perfect view across Manhattan of the horrible picture that was emerging. The upper part of the North Tower was on fire. And then another plane hit the South Tower. He, like the others, could not believe what he was seeing. It had to be some kind of unthinkable accident. The South Tower started to crumble and went down. Jorge watched from miles away in surreal slow motion as the gigantic building just disappeared. There was a high burst of what he thought was steam or perhaps water from the fire hoses pouring out of the building as it collapsed. That was the release of massive amounts of concrete dust as the building disintegrated from the top down. Jorge lost 3 co-workers that day who were among dozens of law enforcement personnel who ran into those buildings to help rescue people who were trapped. The image of that second plane flying into the South Tower is emblazoned in his mind. He can still see that crumbling tower disappearing in front of him. He will never forget the faces of his friends and co-workers. He knows that all law enforcement officers who died that day gave their lives doing what they are sworn to do, to serve and protect, no matter what. That's why they became cops. Jorge Maldonado will now place a wreath on the beam in honor of those 72 law enforcement officers who died at Ground Zero, for their families and friends and colleagues who will never forget. Maria Portillo was at her desk in the World Trade Center on 9/11. She was on the 74th floor. It was 8:46 a.m. when suddenly the morning office hum was shattered by an explosion. Maria and her colleagues had no idea that a jetliner had just crashed into the building, 20 floors above where she was. They knew something was horribly wrong because the giant building was creaking, the floor beneath her was moving, swaying, and debris, lots of it, was raining down past the windows. As Maria and her friends ran to the stairway, it was already crowded with people trying to get down, but none of them knew what had happened at that moment. She said it was eerie in the stairwell. It was quiet as they concentrated on the steps walking down. They knew it was going to be a long walk. At the 70th floor, somewhere around there, somebody with a cell phone heard that the building had been hit by a plane. As word spread, they began to run into firefighters and rescue personnel who were coming up the stairs. She said their faces showed the strain of the climb. They were some of the heroes of that day, and she says she will never forget their determined faces. The focused look of heroes trying to save lives in a building that was about to collapse. Maria and her friends finally made it out of the North Tower, and when they got to sunlight that morning, they ran. They ran in shock and disbelief. They were several blocks away just before 10 a.m. when the second tower collapsed, blowing out tons of debris and thick clouds of white concrete dust that covered everything. She still has vivid memories of that day. The faces of all those firefighters and rescue personnel in the stairwell going up while she was going down. And sometimes she says when she closes her eyes, she sees herself back in that stairwell, passing would-be rescuers. She said it was like they were climbing the stairs toward heaven. Maria Portillo will now place a wreath on the beam to honor all of those who lost their lives at the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and in that field in Pennsylvania, where a fourth airliner crashed, where all those who survived 9/11. Army Chief Warrant Officer 2, Romy Camargo, joined the Army when he was 19. Special Forces was his choice and expertise. He always wanted to be a soldier, especially since growing up and watching his older brothers serve his country. Chief Camargo is a warrior and an elite fighter. In September 2008, he was on his third tour in Afghanistan. He and his fellow Green Berets were on a combat mission in the mountains near Kandahar. Without warning, enemy snipers attacked them, and Romy was shot in the neck. The injury paralyzed him from the shoulders down. Chief Camargo is still on active duty and proudly wears that Army uniform with his Special Forces badge. He mentors other wounded warriors now. He has instant rapport with those who are dealing with injuries. It is another one of his missions. And now Chief Camargo's days are filled with intensive physical therapy and treatments and spending time with his wife and son and daughter and feeling their kisses on his face. Since he was shot, Chief Camargo has a can-do attitude. He doesn't complain, even though some days are worse than others. He says if he had to go back in time, he would do that mission all over again for one simple reason. It was for his country. His country. Our country. He doesn't regret that day that changed his life. It would have been different to accept if he were paralyzed in a car accident, he says, but this happened while he was serving his nation. It was a price he was willing to pay for the United States. Chief Camargo is proud to represent our nation's armed forces on this day of remembrance. Since September 11, 2001, nearly 49,000 American troops have been wounded or injured in our wars on terror. Thank God for soldiers like Chief Camargo who are willing to do what it takes. Chief Camargo and his wife, Gabriella, will place a wreath of honor in tribute to all the armed forces who continue to fight the good fight. And now the fifth wreath. It will be presented by Annette Kirk. Annette is the proud mother of a fallen hero. Her son was Paul Kazupi II. And he, too, was an extraordinary young man. He played guitar and wrote rock songs. He was a good friend to many, a great soldier to his country. And from the beginning, it was as if Paul were meant to be in uniform. He was born at Fort Riley, Kansas. His mother, Annette, and his father both served in the United States Army, and other family members served in Vietnam in World War II. Paul wanted more than anything to help others who needed help. He trained to be a combat medic, a warrior who helped other warriors. In the heat of battle, Paul would render aid to fellow soldiers. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to be. And he was the best. In Afghanistan in 2010, he treated an Afghan child who was seriously injured by an improvised explosive. The child's father rushed his son into camp, and it was Paul who ran to the injured child, and he did his best. But the child was too seriously injured, and Paul could not save him. But Paul was there for that young man in his dying moments, and he was awarded a medal for trying. He won the admiration of fellow soldiers who recognized his compassion and dedication to help the injured, and they called him Care Bear. Paul telephoned his mother that night after the young Afghan boy passed away. He needed to talk to someone. His mother listened to his anguish about not being able to save that child, and Paul was showing his true colors. He fought for his country but could not bear to see an innocent child die. His mother knew she had raised him right. He was an American soldier, and she was proud. On August 8, 2010, Army PFC Paul Kazupe was on patrol with his unit in Afghanistan when an improvised bomb exploded near him, and he was killed. He was just 23 years old. When they brought him home to Hillsborough County, a grateful community lined the streets to say thank you and farewell. His mother, Annette, will now place a wreath on the beam to honor the 4,900 members of the United States Armed Forces who paid the ultimate price for standing up for America. And I would like to ask the families of fallen heroes from Hillsborough County who are in the audience this afternoon, would you please stand? Well, everybody's on their feet now, as you should be, as we honor America's sons and daughters. Ladies and gentlemen, honor them all as they honor the heroes, the victims, the survivors of 9/11. And thank you all for being here with us and allowing us to share this moment with you. We appreciate your tolerance and patience in the heat. You may be seated now. Ladies and gentlemen, from Rampello Elementary School, the first grade class chorus and the Rampello Wind Ensemble. The steel beam in front of us from the World Trade Center was donated to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office by the, by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. The beam is a visible symbol, of course, of what happened that day 10 years ago, but also a memorial to those who perished and those who survived and those who were rescued. Joe Chillura Courthouse Square here will be the site of the permanent memorial, which will be on display here and pay tribute to 9/11, with scheduled completion in 2012. Concept drawings are on display, and you should take a moment not only to see the grandeur of the permanent memorial, but to leave a message for those who joined us today only in spirit. May God protect all those first responders in our communities and our armed forces throughout the world, and some in very dangerous places. Keep them all safe, and keep the memory of those heroes and those who gave their lives alive in our hearts, and may God bless America.
I think the best way to handle the attack of September the 11th is to fight fear with friendship.
Children of America, there's a way to conquer fear. It's time that we all get along, so hey, will this up here? There's one thing that we can do, and we should start today. We'll fight fear with friendship, there is no better way. Fighting fear with friendship, it is our nation's goal. Our president has asked the kids to be a friend to all. Fighting fear with friendship, there's letters we can send. Tell the kids throughout the world, we want to be their friend. Children of America, we love our liberty. We wish that kids throughout the world also could be free. If only they could feel our hearts, they would know how much we care. We all want peace on earth for children everywhere. Fighting fear with friendship, it is our nation's goal. Our president has asked the kids to be a friend to all. Fighting fear with friendship, there's letters we can send. Tell the kids throughout the world, we want to be their friend. Regardless of our color or nationality, we should respect our differences and friends. We all should be. Fighting fear with friendship, it is our nation's call. Our president has asked the kids to be a friend to all. Fighting fear with friendship, there's letters we can send. Tell the kids throughout the world, we want to be their friend. Let's tell the kids throughout the world, we want to be your
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming, for sharing this tribute that is such a part of our lives we will never forget. We will remember the sacrifices of so many. We ask the good Lord to keep them safe overseas and bring them home safely back to our homes. Godspeed on all of your journeys, and thank you.